Hello, I'm Rick Stivers of YoungMartin'sReels. If you watched the video I did last night, or actually it was this tonight, this won't be done until tomorrow. If you watched that video on this Penn Pursuit, this is the one that was all frozen up and it was all full of corrosion and stuff inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this apart tonight and I'm going to start putting parts into soak and see if we can't do something to make this reel run a little bit smoother, or a lot smoother than what it's doing. Right now it's functional, but it's not doing what it should be. Chris, when I took this apart and re-lubed it, I didn't really give it a fair chance, your super lube. I got it in and I used it on this reel, which since this reel wasn't completely clean, that's not really a valid test of your super lube grease. So we're going to do it again once we get this thing cleaned up. Okay, we're going to remove the spool. Let's take a look here. Okay, and we're going to need to remove the handle on this. Okay, and this was all gummed up full of salt and corrosion, and the WD-40 did an excellent job of dissolving all of that and getting it out of there. The handle, not sure what I'm going to be able to do for that. I've scrubbed it with a scrub brush. It's got this UV coloring to it, and maybe I'll scrape it off. I don't know, but I'm certainly not going to buy it a new handle. I've already taken that off and lubed inside it. This wouldn't turn at all when we started, and I've got it lubed up now so that it's functional again. All right, let's see if we can get inside this thing. Oh, also notice on this bottom here, I've got this rubber band, and on this rubber band is a shim. And when I took the reel apart, this shim was in there. Anytime I put it together with the shim where it belonged, it bound the reel up. And I think that's because the reel is not perfectly clean yet. So I'm going to set that shim off to the side, and we're going to hopefully put that back in here when all this is cleaned up and serviced properly. I just think there's too much dirt and corrosion possibly left in here on these gears to allow them to operate properly with that shim in. Okay, all four of these screws are going to be the same, so we're going to take them out. I've already done a Penn Pursuit once, and it's an individual early model, and this is the Penn Pursuit II. And if you want to see a slower, quicker version, or slower, more detailed version, watch that one. This one is more, can we salvage this reel and bring it back to what it was without having to put a whole bunch of new parts into it. See how sticky things seem to still be? I didn't want to just come right out of there. We're going to take this bearing out. I'm going to get a feel for this. Yeah, this bearing is still gritty, so absolutely. But I don't hear anything. I don't feel anything when I rotate it. But we're going to put it into soak. All right, now, main gear won't come out yet because we still have the axle shaft in. So let's remove the screw for the axle shaft. Okay, I'll put that screw right back in the axle shaft, because I plan to put these into soak. They're still gritty feeling. The quick clean I did of this obviously was not enough. Axle shaft is out. Main gear is out. And yeah, you can just feel grit. So I did not even come close to getting it all out. Right here's where that shim's going to go when we try to put it back. Okay. Hear how noisy that is? It spins freely, just makes a lot of noise. Let's see if we can't fix that. Wow. And it's really in there. See if I moved it any. Looks like maybe just a hair. Okay, I don't recommend that technique, but it worked. Okay, all I did was took this in and just wrapped against the board on this edge right here, and it popped that out. I don't recommend doing that. But yeah, wow, this thing is just full of grit. Okay, there's another shim here. We don't want to lose that one. That one goes on the bearing. Okay, now this is what do we got here? Okay, it's a full-fledged bearing, but it does have an inset side here. almost as though, there. All right, now, okay, so that's for the anti-reverse. Okay. Now, if you look at that, you want it to be able to rotate counterclockwise, but not clockwise. When you put it back together, it should do the same thing. All right. Should go back together just like that. And the plastic side, see, it's got the plastic insert. That's the side that should go down towards the gear. All right, there's the sleeve. And there's the bearing. Okay. Since I've got it all apart, I'm going to take this opportunity to do some measurements. First off, let's go ahead and take this side cover off and push this bearing out, like so. Okay. Now, if you'll notice, none of these bearings are the same size. They're all four different. Okay, so here's how we're going to do it. The small side of the main gear bearing is going to be an 8mm inside diameter, 12mm outside diameter, this looks to be a 3.5mm. I don't know if they come, I don't know if you can find them standard. I have to do some research on that, but it's a 3.5mm thickness. Okay, so that's the size of that one. The other crankshaft one is going to be, again, 8mm inside diameter, 14 outside diameter, and 4mm thickness. All right, then it's going to come your closest to the pinion gear, which is 8mm inside, 16mm outside, and 4mm thickness. Then you got the big bearing. Now this one's kind of a specialty bearing, so I'm not sure how well it would work just replacing this with a standard bearing. But it might do okay. All right, and that's going to be an 8mm inside, wow. Looks like a 19mm outside and a 6mm thickness. So if you had to replace those, probably the best thing to do would be to, because they're kind of odd, would be to go to mysticparts.com. That's the official Penn supply place, and they'll have all those parts, and they're not that expensive. But by the time you put all of those parts together and replace them, now you're talking $30 to $40 in parts. So I'm going to recommend that you try to clean them up and use them as is. If you've got just one or two, normally when you replace gears, you replace them as a set. And like I said, this Penn Pursuit II, just like the Penn 1, was the bottom of the line for the Penn spinning reels. So you normally don't want to put that much money into one. But we're going to clean this thing up. I'm going to put these bearings into soak. They're going to soak in acetone overnight. And tomorrow I'll see if I can start getting this thing scrubbed up clean. Chris, I know it's hard to believe, but this thing was lubed 2 days ago with your super lube. And look at how black everything is. That just shows me not that the super lube is not doing its job, but I didn't do anywhere near a good enough job cleaning it up. So, like I said, I didn't even try using solvents or anything else. I just kind of wiped everything down just to see if I could get it motion again. And I did, but now it's time to see if we can do better. All right. All right, I chickened out a little bit when it comes to soaking the clutch bearing in acetone because it's got this big plastic insert, and I don't know how that would react to the acetone. So I'm just going to use WD-40 cleaning that, and I'll just clean it multiple times until it stops feeling gritty. I wanted to take a moment to show you that this is not actually a single bearing. This is a bearing in a holder, okay? And the measurements on this are going to be 8 millimeters on the inside, as I said before. And then it's going to be 16 millimeters on the outside and 5 millimeters thickness, okay? So I wanted to clarify that. And I thought that'd come out, but what had happened is it corroded so badly into here that it couldn't come out. And what I had to do to get it out was I had to find a way to press it out without having to press. So what I did is I set it up with a nut driver, in case one of you end up with this situation too. Set a nut driver so it would sit just in there, and then I took a socket that fit to this outside, put the two of them together, and then I tapped it until it popped out. Okay, so just wanted you to know that in case you had to do that yourself, because this is, if this was corroded up the whole thing to where it couldn't be used, you'd have to get the two separated. Okay, so but anyway, I've got it cleaned up enough now. They'll go in and out easily. And also 90% of my noise, I believe, was coming from this bearing, which I have now managed to quiet down dramatically. Let's take it off of here. Before, if I did that, you'd hear this, and you don't hear that anymore, or at least I don't. So I think I have the parts cleaned up enough that the reel is going to function properly now. But I've still got parts in soaking. These, however, have all come adequately clean. It is interesting, though, that they decided to use 3 different sizes of bearings, or 4 different sizes of bearings in this. Turns out plans and reality are not always the same thing. I intended to wait till tomorrow to get back to this, and the anticipation just got too much for me. So here it is, all cleaned, all the parts scrubbed, as much corrosion as I could get off, and we're about ready here now to start putting this reel back together to see if I was able to take this noisy pin and turn it into a quiet pin. All right, the first thing we're going to do, see these little inserts? You didn't see me take these out, but they actually belong with the pinion gear. There we go. Okay, one of them goes into this little shoulder right here, and probably the best way for me to do that is probably going to be with a pair of hemostats and gently holding it. Like so, and setting it into that hole. Nope. All right, I'm going to change strategy. I'm going to put it on a Q-tip and slide it in from the front. Yeah, that was a lot easier. Okay, the other one it's going to slide in to the end of the pinion gear, like so. Now, the next part to go on, let's move these two out of the way. They don't belong over here. Next one to go in is going to be this roller bearing. It slides on, and it's been fairly well lubricated, but we're going to add another nice shot of oil to it. And it was a slightly noisy bearing, but nothing compared to the forward bearing. Okay, now this is our clutch, and what I did with the clutch, it had a lot of dirt inside it too. So you're not supposed to lubricate these because it's a friction device, but what I did do, WD-40 wears off real fast. Okay, so what I did is I took it and sprayed it down, soaked it good in WD-40, and then took a Q-tip and continued to run around it like that. Okay, once I got it to the point where my Q-tip was coming out clean, I set it on the sleeve like so and rotated it, and then took it back off and did the Q-tip test again until I finally got it to where the Q-tip was coming out perfectly clean. So there we go, we've got that in. Now, the sleeve goes on, like I just showed you. We'll take it back off and repeat the process. Okay, sleeve goes on. It's got a squared off shoulders on it that slide down over like that. Okay, then goes the clutch bearing with the plastic part showing towards the gear, like so. Okay, now you've got that on. All right, this bearing fits inside this sleeve, like so, and it doesn't matter which way it goes. It's not sealed. It's a shielded bearing, but it's not sealed. Slide that in, and then this open shoulder part is what goes down onto here, like so. Okay. Now all of that is going to fit down inside here. Now, the clutch bearing, it's got these shoulders on it, and you're going to have to get those to match up with what's inside there to get it to go in. Okay, there we go. We're in like that, and we've got one last piece to go on here. And since I forgot to clean it, let's clean it real quick. Okay, and we're going to slide that piece on like so, and we are ready to reattach the bearing plate that holds it locked down. Okay. And it is not symmetrical, so make sure to line it up with the holes properly. This is not, again, I don't have it right. It fits, yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm going to give this the last shot of oil around this bearing shield. Give it a spin. And that's not right. Yes, it is. Okay. It has to be right because this has to turn that direction when it's winding. Okay. That's where I told you it had to be able to spin counterclockwise before, but apparently I don't remember things correctly. Okay, next we're going to install this side bearing on the other side, and we're going to give it another shot of oil. Next to go in is going to be the oscillating gear. And we're going to go ahead. The easiest way to do that, I think, since the oscillating gear is completely covered in grease on every tooth and every surface, just go ahead and give it a little dunk in the grease if you can. Okay, then bring it around till the post is at the rear. With that done, we're going to put a little grease on the face of the crosswound block, and we're going to stick it in like so. Okay, then we've got this assembly, which was cleaned good the other day, but I didn't clean it so good last night. And we're going to slip it back in here, and it's going to go over this pin and onto this post over here, and then we're going to screw it down into place. Like that. Okay. Now, apparently I had water down in that hole from scrubbing this out good. It's because when I screwed the screw in, water come up out of it. All right, that's got it to there. Now we're down to the main gear. Now I took a buffer wheel and I buffed each of these a little bit. I didn't want to get too carried away because I didn't want to remove any surface area. Just wanted to remove the grit. And I think I've done a pretty good job of that. And we're going to set it back in. Get the line up. Okay, now this is where you got to be careful with a reel that doesn't have an anti-reverse override, because if you get this going too far forward and get it jammed up, you've got a real nightmare on your hands getting it untangled. So let's get this down, get it in place like so, get it back here to the back there, as far back as it will go. Put your gear back in like so. Now, if you watched my video before I went on my vacation, you'll see that I have now gone to always, or almost always, oiling the axle shafts instead of greasing them. All right, now the other day, when this thing was still dirty, I put it back together, and this shim, when I installed it, if I tightened it down, it made the whole reel almost lock up. I'm putting it back in there today, and I'm hoping that's not going to happen now that all the dirt's out. Okay, we're going to set our bearing back down, and we're going to oil it again. Oh, you guys have seen me do this before. All right, let's put the rotor assembly on. It'll line up the flats with the flats on the pinion shaft. Now don't rotate this. If you do, you're going to pull this down and cause yourself some grief there. You don't want to do that. So now let's put the, well, got to put the nut on. Tighten it down. And you really have to resist the impulse to rotate this, because it really wants you to do it. And if you do and you get it locked up, you're going to have difficulty getting it back apart. Now put your axle shaft back in, which you just oiled. There we go. Get it slide in, line up the hole, get your screw, line your screw in the hole, and screw it down. Now, if you have that burning desire to rotate it, you can. Still not dead silent, but a lot better. I think the only way to really fix that is going to be to replace those two bearings in the main. All right, but it's considerably better than it was, and smoother feeling too. All right, we're ready to put the side case back on, like so. Let's put our 4 screws back in. Now those holes were heavily salted, so we're going to go ahead, put a little oil in each hole just to kind of help them along. All right, these are felt washers. So what we're going to do is we're going to lubricate them with some oil. First one to go in after the felt washer goes this keyed washer. It's keyed because it's got a flat on each of these sides of the hole. Drop that in. Okay, next felt washer goes in. We're going to oil it. Then we're going to put in the eared washer. so. And then, last but not least, goes the last felt washer. I'll oil that one as well. Followed up by the last keyed washer. Those all done, we're going to put in the locking ring. And it is a spring, so it can take off flying, so you be careful. Okay, that's in. Get that line out from underneath there. Slide it on. Get it to drop down. Let's wipe off the excess grease out of here and install. Let's see, it must not be down all the way. There we go. All right, it's not silent, but it is a lot more quiet than it was. And the only way I'm going to be able to quiet that down anymore is to break down and replace those bearings. Is it worth it to me? I don't know. I'll have to give it some thought. So, that's the Penn Pursuit II. I've cleaned it out, got all the dirt out of it. It's no longer a dirty reel. All the grit is gone. So now it's just a matter of bad bearings. And they're not really bad. They're just noisy. They've got pits in it from being corroded. And but they're still very functional. They'll do the job. They just make noise. And noise does irritate me in a reel that is as smooth as this reel could be. So I may end up changing out the bearings, but I'm not sure. Anyway, if you like what you saw here, please hit the like button. If you didn't like what you saw, hit the dislike button. Do me the favor, though, of telling me what it is about my video you didn't like. I'm always open to criticism, especially if it's constructive. Even some that wasn't so constructive, I've managed to find ways to properly utilize. So please let me know. And for now, that's Rick Stivers with YoungMartin'sReels, signing out.